guys, welcome to part 2 of the Q&A Joel and I had last week. We talked, and so we ended up needing to split this up into 2 pieces, and today you guys get the rest of it. We answered a couple of your guys' questions last week, kind of shared a little bit of how we got together and just kind of who we are in our life stories. Today we get into the bulk of your guys' questions, so be sure to catch up on part 1 before you guys watch today's video. Watch today's and let us know what you think. Give us a good thumbs up if you liked it. And if you guys have more questions that we didn't answer, feel free to drop them in the comments below. What challenges did you come up against early on learning each other's cultural backgrounds? I would say just listening sometimes. Being open to hearing the other person's kind of point of view. Because I think sometimes, again, like you said, I mean, this kind of just riffs off the last question, but thinking that our way is the best, how we grew up was the better way.
Yeah. I think the other part of it is the layers of it, because the layer of a cultural nuance or reality for a dating relationship looks very different from when you're first married, looks very different from when you add kids into the mix. And so I think being able to, if I were to go back, I think being able to realize that it's kind of like an onion and we're peeling layers off of it. And sometimes we can want things to be like a checklist. You just check it off and you're done. You can move on.
Like we've accomplished this. We're finished. We've done it.
And I would say there's really no accomplishing it, because we will realize that there are nuances and layers to this that consistently cause us to revisit these aspects.
Well, and I would say one thing too is vulnerability. You know, Joel's mom and I are extremely close, and I would say one thing that's helped us to be so close is our vulnerability with each other. I've come to her so many times just saying, okay, I don't understand, whether it's a tradition or if we're going to go to like an event and I don't know all of the, what's the word? I guess just traditions at like an event, whether it's like, say, an engagement ceremony or different like nulligoos or like different things that I've never been to. Like being able to have vulnerability and saying, hey mom, I don't understand. Can you teach me what this looks like? Can you teach me what I should expect, or, you know, what I can do? And I would say early on, I would ask Joel what some of these things were. And I learned that it was a very good relationship builder per se, I guess, to actually not always go to Joel, but to go to his sister, to go to his brother or his parents or his aunts and uncles. And it would really help our relationship because I could just ask questions and they loved that I was asking questions. And I think it showed them that like I wanted to learn. Yeah. I wanted to know what was going on. And instead of coming in, which I think something I struggled with, was just being like, oh, I'll figure it out. Like, I'm fine. I can figure it out on my own. But being able to say, actually, I have no clue. I would love to learn so I can take part in some of these things. So I think vulnerability is a big piece as well.
Yep.
So let's see. So this is a couple pieces, so let me see if I can break this up. How did your parents react to your relationship? I am German and dating an Indian, and his parents aren't super keen on our relationship. It's really tough. Any tips on how to deal with it and what we can do? So I'll start and then you can totally come in. I would say our parents were always great with our relationship. We talked about that earlier. Interracial couples and relationships weren't new to our family. Joel's family had walked that through many times. So was it 2 times before I came in?
At least, yeah.
Yeah, at least 2 times since I had come in. My family, it wasn't as big of a deal either. So I would say our parents were very accepting. They definitely both learned with us as we were together. And like Joel said, like as the years progressed, as we were dating and as we were getting married and as we were having kids, because again, their cultural expectations were one thing. So they, whether it's subconscious or not, they thought things would go a certain way. And then when we were kind of blending cultures differently, they had to kind of walk and learn with us. So I would say that would be one area where we were all just really had to learn together for the last 10 years. We've all had to learn together. Yeah. And like you said, it's not stopped. We're all still learning together and what it looks like to have new kids and, you know, all these things. So they were super accepting, which I think has been huge for us and it's been very helpful. But yeah, Joel, what would you say for her for kind of coming in to a family who's just not welcoming of her? What would you say she could do, or suggestions, or I guess advice?
Yeah, I think the first like encouragement I'd give is it's not you. Like I would do my best to try to separate, you know, kind of like when I said earlier, I want to believe the best in people and hope in the best for people, that there are things that the family is going through that we want to be empathetic to and realize that it's a process, it's a journey for them, and do our best not to absorb it internally, because that's hard. And I get it. Like, it's easy for me to say. It's a way different thing to live that out. But I would just say trying to be intentional about that. And the second thing is, I think time is the test. Like, time determines everything.
Yeah.
And so your continued perseverance and showing love and kindness,
even if you're not receiving that.
Yeah, in spite of what you might be feeling like you're receiving, and it goes against our flesh, right? Like, it goes against, like, I wanna react in a way that's going to justify myself or like make me feel better. And then I think, being able to react in love and doing your homework, doing your best to figure out the areas that are very important for them. What are the family specifically, things that they value, and I'm just going to say, a lot of times your significant other is not going to know some of these things, or they're going to know it but not think that it's that big of a deal.
Because it's natural to them.
Because it's natural, yeah. And so this has been another course of like tension between us, right? Like making chai. Like, I would have never even thought like, oh yeah, you should make chai when people like. It just was kind of a normal thing.
Like when people come over to your house.
So go to siblings, go ask the mom, the dad, and do a little bit of that homework, and then be able to show and exercise and say, hey, you really care and you value the culture, and then just allow time to do the rest.
Yeah, and I would say too, another big piece is you and your significant other need to be a team. Whether you're walking into a tough situation or not, it's going to be so much easier when your partner is with you, kind of ride or die, and you guys can do things together. So you're figuring it out together. You have that person to lean on. I think that's very huge, and that can really help you as you kind of walk forward in things. But yeah, I would say one thing that I have seen through talking with so many of you guys and hearing your stories, and even just talking to my in-laws and some of the stories that they've shared and advice that they've shared for some of you guys as well, has been to just not fight your own battles necessarily, but have your own relationship with your in-laws. I think it's natural sometimes, because when you're nervous of the tension and when you're nervous on what you're going to receive, oh, can you go talk to your mom about this? Can you go tell your mom to be nicer to me? Can you go do this? And that puts a huge burden on your significant other, and that does nothing for your relationship with that person. So I would say, like Joel said, let time just kind of happen and just slowly just love on them. Ask them questions. Hey, can you show me how you're making that? If your mother-in-law is making dinner, can I make this with you? Can you show me? If your father-in-law is making chai or watching a cricket game or just whatever it is, go and ask if you can watch it with him. And just the more that you can kind of try to kind of just invite yourself into those situations and do things with them and ask questions, the more vulnerable they see you are, it's like Joel said, it's going to show that you're trying and that you're invested, and they may say no, and that's okay.
Right.
Keep trying. Do not give up. Keep learning, keep watching and getting to know these things. And like Joel said, there's going to be certain battles that you want to fight and that are worth it for you because it is something that matters. Okay, whether it's your religion or some big pivotal foundational piece of your life.
Whether you're going to parent your kids.
Whether you're going to parent your kids. Yeah, if you want, how involved you want them in your kids' lives or whatever that is, you and your partner figure out those things that you are not willing to budge on and you stick to them together. But then
I would just say, like, be real careful.
Yeah.
Be real careful on some of these decisions because, again, if you make a decision based purely off of your background and what you value, you could be undervaluing something that for the other culture is like do or die.
Yeah.
And so you really have to think, like, is it worth it? Like, I think for us, for the most part, we're like, if at all possible, we're going to create a compromise in every scenario for the most part. And what that does is it builds this relational equity for when we do make that decision of, no, this is how we're going to do it because this is important to us and this is what, and it's going against everybody else's kind of probably what they desire of us. I think we've deposited enough relational equity into that bank account where it's being able to be received a little bit better. So just like we're saying this, but I just want to also caution you, like this is not just something that you do flippantly.
Yes.
Especially the big decisions. I think it's really wise to get other people that have been in this position before and have counselors, and for you to wrestle. Like you got to wrestle through this and work out all the possible implications, and then at the end of that say, hey, it's worth it or not.
It's worth the consequences. It's worth what your in-laws could decide because of that. And I would say too, don't feel like you have to make a decision right then and there. We have had situations in our family where we've tried it a certain way. We've walked down the path and said, okay, we're going to give this a shot. We're going to try this. And then we've decided, hey, actually, this just isn't quite working. So we're going to tweak it, or we're going to change it, or whatever. So walk with it together. Like we said, talk to a counselor, figure out what those things are. Take your time to really figure out what those key pieces are. And then like Joel said, find things that you can compromise on. Find pieces that you are willing to say, I'm going to learn. I'm going to do this. Hey, I'm not used to letting my in-laws in my relationship, but I'm willing to on these areas. I'm going to ask for advice on these certain things. Just find ways, like Joel said, with with kind of that relationship equity, find ways to really let them in. And I think at the end of the day, no matter the way they do it or not, I think families just want to be involved. I think that it all goes back to cultural expectations, which I just think is a huge part of all of this. Your in-laws probably, honestly, they probably didn't expect an interracial relationship for their kid. And that's okay. That was just not what they were used to. They probably had all these expectations on their own, and they're now grappling with this newness and with this new way that things are happening, and that's okay. Give time, show them you care, let them see who you are, and just truly just take time. And a good support system. I think that's huge, whether you're finding, like Joel said, couples that have experienced it before. And sometimes the really cool thing is maybe, someone in that family or an extended cousin or someone kind of within that area really understands, and you can get that advice. I have a Facebook group that I'll link here. It's called Multiracial Motherhood. And there's tons of women, almost 1,000 women who are experiencing the same kinds of things. Drop in that group, ask your questions, be vulnerable. It's a very safe space. Ask and just share your story and see. I can guarantee you have people that are going through the same things.
Yeah.
So be vulnerable and ask questions and ask for support in safe spaces. Let's see. A couple more. Was it hard in the beginning? I'm in a similar relationship and really need support. I would say our hardest time was in the beginning. Would you agree with that?
I think you have to define what is beginning, dating or marriage or what?
I would say just like the first 2 years.
Of marriage or dating?
Both, of dating and marriage. I would say the first year of both. We dated for about a year. We were married for about a year. I would say those, for me personally, those first two, I guess not as much dating, because dating we weren't really around as much we didn't have to blend as many traditions and stuff.
I was gonna say, I don't think dating. I think for sure the first 2 years of marriage though were by far. I think there's a stat that I read once that, and this is for across the board, I think they say like the first 2 years of marriage is the hardest, and it's like years 4 through 7 or 4 through 6,
something like that.
It's like you have these polar opposites before that first decade, where you have like, you're just navigating all kinds of things.
Yeah, I heard it was like the first 2 years, and then it was like year 4 because things aren't as new anymore, and you're kind of you hit this routine and a rut almost, and then it comes back again like year 7 or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say you're right. I would say dating, you're right. Dating, it was more just fun and new. But once we got married, it truly was like, okay, now we're starting a family culture and we have to figure out these things. So yeah, I would say the beginning was the hardest for us. Just because we were young, we were learning what it meant to be husband and wife. We were learning what it meant to have open communication, just to have healthy communication in general. For me personally, I didn't grow up with like marriage my whole life. I was around a lot of divorce and things like that, so I didn't always know what healthy looked like. So I would say like it took us time to just learn all these pieces, learn what was important to us, and just to start everything. Yeah. So I would say just the relationship I would give you, the advice I would just give you would be to just take time, give yourself grace. It's probably the biggest thing. This stuff does not happen overnight. Honestly, it's taken us 10 years to get to the point that we are today, and we are still learning. Yeah. We are still navigating. We are still learning how to be a better couple and to communicate better. We still talk to counselors. We still have counselors in our marriage, which are really important. So I would just say, if you can, start counseling early on. Give yourself and your spouse grace. Like, you guys are still learning all of these different pieces. So don't put this pressure on your partner that they should know all of this by now, that they should know how to include you in their culture. They should know how to include you in their family, because they're learning too. So the more you can talk and say, hey, like, it makes me uncomfortable, or it hurts my feelings when you do this, and then this, to actually be able to receive the same kind of comments, the better for you guys. And just take it day by day, learn from each other, know that there is no perfect relationship out there at all, and it'll get better and better each day.
Time. It all takes time.
It all takes time. Well, guys, that is the bulk of our questions. We will answer probably like around 2, 3, whatever we're at this point, in a later video. But thank you guys so much for joining us. We had a ton of fun sharing with you guys. I hope we weren't too boring, or we weren't too wild or too crazy. If you think I'm funny, make sure to like this video. Just want to make sure that Joel sees this and understands.
If you think I'm funny, comment and say Joel is funny.
Guys, come on. Let's admit it. We know I'm pretty funny. Anyways, if you guys have questions that we have not answered, be sure to drop them in the comments. We can either answer them in the comments, or we'll add them to our next video. But thank you so much. Make sure you guys subscribe so you can keep up on our videos, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Catch you later.